Yeah, it's good to go. So just with everybody, remember my tips just about enunciating and speaking out to the cameras, please. It's died down a little bit over the last couple of times, so just if we just do a bit of projection. Thanks, guys. So yeah, when it ticks over 6 o'clock, you're good to go.
Welcome to the Pyrenees Shire Council Ordinary Meeting on Tuesday the 20th of April 2021, being held at the chambers at the Beaufort office. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for this open council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online. Anyone who is invited to read out a question or a presentation will be recorded, and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. The Chair and or the CEO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published. The stream will stop prior to the closed section of the meeting and will recommence for the conclusion of the meeting. The public is able to view this live stream via our website at www.pyrenees.vic.gov.au. Should technical issues prevent the continuation of the stream, a recording will be made available on our website. Opening prayer. Heavenly Father, we ask you to give your blessing to this council, direct and prosper its deliberations to the advancement of your glory and the true welfare of the people of the Pyrenees Shire. Amen. We acknowledge the people past and present of the Wadawurrung, Jarjarwurrung, Eastern Mar and Watchabella tribes whose land forms the Pyrenees Shire. We pay our respect to the customs, traditions and stewardship of the land by the elders and the people of these tribes on whose land we meet today. I'll call for any apologies.
Councillor Keogh.
Apology from Councillor Keogh. 6, notice of any councils or officers got any notice of disclosure of interest in relation to any items. Confirmation of the previous minutes. The minutes of the ordinary meeting of the council held on 16th of March 21, closed meeting of the council held on 6th of March 21 and the special meeting of council held on 13th of April 21 as previously circulated to council be confirmed. Is someone to moved by Councillor Clark, Councillor Reeson, the votes. Thank you. Business arising. There's no business arising from the previous minutes held 16th of March 2021. Public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to ask questions of council at ordinary council meetings. In normal times, questions may be asked by members of the public in person. However, at present, community members are not permitted to attend council meetings in person due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Questions can be submitted online through council's website, by mail or hand delivered. Questions are to be received by 12 noon on the day of the meeting in accordance with the council's governance rules. A person can submit a maximum of 2 questions on any topic and the questions and its response shall not exceed 5 minutes. Questions are read by the chairperson during public participation time. The chairperson may accept or reject any question or summarise the question before putting it to the meeting. The chairperson may disallow a question if it is phrased as a statement rather than a question, relates to matters outside the duties, functions and powers of council, is defamatory, indecent, abusive, offensive, irrelevant or objectionable in language or content, is a repetition of a question already asked or answered, is aimed at embarrassing a councillor or council officer. The chairperson or council officer to whom a question is referred may immediately answer the question or take the question on notice for the next ordinary meeting. And I do have a couple of questions that have been submitted, and the questions have been submitted by Trevor Davey above, so thank you Trevor for your questions. Question 1 is why do people use the disused White United Petroleum Service Station with contaminated fuel tanks still under the ground? That site also has asbestos in the roof. Mr. Nolan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Mr. Davey for your question. The answer to the why is the site being used. It's understood that both the Progress Association have identified the site as a suitable site for them to operate as a base for their activities and for some business activity. Council has engaged with business, both the Progress Association prior to the use. It was understood that there was no planning permit required for the use that they proposed. If there was a planning permit trigger, then there would be some consideration for some of the risk issues that Mr. Davey has identified. It's also understood that WorkSafe have previously been engaged in assessing the site, and there have been no adverse risks that prevent the site from being used in the way in which it's currently proposed.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Question 2 from Trevor Davey. Why do so many staff in the street shops park their cars in the parking bays out front and restrict shoppers and tourists from being able to park? Can we enforce the limits somehow? And is there a solution whereby the council can advise them or guide them? Mr. Gowans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and again thank you, Mr. Davey, for this further question. Council do have the ability to enforce parking limits where parking limits are in place, and my understanding is that some of the areas that Mr. Davey has identified are 2-hour parking limits, and Council is committed through its community safety and amenity officers to ensure that there is adherence to that 2-hour park, and I also have it on good authority from that team that they are prepared to do some preemptive work with the businesses that have been identified to make sure that they're aware that that 2-hour parking limit will be enforced. Ultimately, I understand the concern that by utilising those parks, it might have a detrimental effect on business patronage, and ultimately Council's role is to ensure that limits are adhered to, and it might be a good practice for those businesses to look at some alternate parks to allow some of those more accessible parks to be used by shoppers and tourists alike.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. And I'd just like to thank you, Mr. Davey, for your questions and taking the time to submit those to the council meeting. Takes us to 10.1, items for noting. I take it that the council has read those items. Have we got any?
Happy to move this.
Move those items. Seconded. Councillor Vance. Thank you. Have we got any council wish to ask any questions in relation to those items for noting? No? All those in favour? Thank you. Takes us to item 13, items for decision. 13.1, asset development services. Local road and community infrastructure program stage 2. That's to be Mr. Gowans, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to rescind the resolution for item 13.11, local roads and community infrastructure program stage 2, resolved at the February 2021 council meeting, and endorse projects to be nominated in the local roads and community infrastructure program that would replace those original endorsed projects. Council considered a report at the February 2021 council meeting regarding the allocation of $1.1 million through the local roads and community infrastructure program that's been kindly offered through the federal government, Commonwealth Government. Council at its 2021 meeting provided notice that it would rescind the decision. The purpose of this rescission is to substitute footpath upgrades in Avoca and Beaufort to the value of $400,000 with a general footpath improvement project to the value of $100,000, plus include a new synthetic green at the Walker Bowls Club to the value of $300,000. No other projects from the original resolution were to be amended. Therefore, it's the officer's recommendation that council rescind the resolution for item 13.11 local roads and community infrastructure program stage 2 resolved at the February 2021 council meeting, and the council endorses the following projects to be nominated for funding under the local roads and community infrastructure program phase 2. And those projects are the Tanwood Avenue of Honour, growing our tree canopy, resilient floodways, road construction of Orme Street, Avoca, between Pyrenees Highway to Pearson Street, road upgrades including Wright Street of Crowlands, footpath improvements of Avoca, and the synthetic green at the Walker Bowls Club.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. Councillors, we have a recommendation.
Move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Councillor Nance, seconded by Councillor Reeston. Councillor Nance, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The opportunity arose to support the Walker Bowls Club in their endeavour to get a synthetic green. Being a bowler for some years, so I had the opportunity to play it their last time at Walker, and boy do they need to get a green. Between rabbits and corrallers, they've certainly copped the hammering, and the time has come. People donate their time in maintaining these greens that with the club at heart, and when we see the opportunity to assist them here, I'm more than happy to support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support Councillor Vance's comments, and Avoca recently got the synthetic green, and I've heard nothing but good replies and support for council for that. And I'm sure we'll get the same sort of response from Walbro when the green is in place.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick comment in the sense of things. Certainly on behalf of the people who appreciate the council was able to see a way to do this in this year and really helps them out in that sense. I think it's the first time in my life that playing on the footy oval would have actually been better than playing on the bowling green at this point in time. So it'll be a terrific outcome for the community to have that for next season.
Thanks. Yes, I think it just shows the need for us to have some flexibility in our decision making and to deal with things as they arise. And Beaufort also is in the process of getting a synthetic green, and my understanding is there's no comparison between a synthetic green and an old grass type green. And the other thing I think is important that Warburton does have a healthy membership of young and old or all age demographics over there, and should that green fail, I think, and they lose membership, it would be very, very difficult to get it back. So it's important that we provide those facilities to sustain those memberships and those clubs, because once they sort of get down, it's very, very difficult to get them back. Anyway, all those in favour? Thank you. 13.2, Corporate and Community Services, Fixed Asset Policy. Ms Brown, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider and adopt the revised fixed assets policy for 2021. The policy has been reviewed and presented for council consideration and adoption, and it provides a clear framework that ensures non-current physical assets are recognised and accounted for in accordance with accounting standards and legislation. It also assists council's commitment to financial sustainability. Non-current physical assets to which this policy applies are infrastructure, property, plant and equipment owned or controlled by council, and is specifically directed to all staff who are involved in the acquisition, construction and disposal, as well as the management, maintenance and reporting of such assets. Excuse me. Council is now requested to consider and endorse the attached policy, and the officer recommendation is that Council adopts the Fixed Assets Policy 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. Councillors, you've got a recommendation there. Anyone like to do that? Councillor Clark, second Councillor Urson. Councillor Clark. Councillor Urson. All those in favour? Thank you. 13.2.2, revenue and rating. You again, Ms Bramwell, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide Council with the draft revenue and rating plan and seek approval to publish for community consultation and feedback. In addition, Council is asked to consider and adopt following policies which underpin the plan: the financial assistance policy, investment policy and borrowing policy. Under Section 93 of the Local Government Act 2020, all councils are required to prepare and adopt a revenue and rating plan covering a minimum period of 4 financial years by the 30th of June following the council election. And in accordance with the Integrated Strategic Planning and Reporting Framework, the revenue and rating plan provides a medium-term plan outlining how council will generate income to deliver on the council plan, programmes and services, as well as the capital works commitments over that 4-year period. In preparing the plan, the council officers developed or reviewed the policies which I've mentioned before, which underpin the revenue and rating plan. The plan aims to articulate council's revenue raising strategy of determining the most appropriate and sustainable mixture of rates, grants, fees and charges and other income that will provide the revenue stream needed for its annual budget and long-term financial plan. Rates and charges represent the most significant revenue source, or a large proportion of the revenue source for council, comprising approximately 44% of its annual income. And the plan recommends a continuation of council's current rating strategy and proposing rating system with the details provided in the report in more detail. The policies which have been proposed to sit below the revenue and rating plan are the financial assistance policy, which is a review of the former hardship policy, which provides council with a framework setting out the process of providing financial relief to individuals and businesses requiring assistance in the payment of rates and charges on the grounds of financial hardship. And the investment policy, which is to establish guidelines for investing council's surplus funds and ensure that investments comply with relevant legislation, the returns on investments are maximised and the level of risk exposure is mitigated. And the third policy is a borrowing policy, to establish a financial framework to guide council in the utilisation and management of loan borrowings as a source of financing. The officer recommendation is that council approves the revenue and rating plan for publishing for community consultation and feedback, adopts the financial assistance policy, adopts the investment policy and adopts the borrowing policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, yes, Councillor Clark.
Can I move an alternate recommendation, please, Mr Mayor? Could you second it?
Yeah, Councillor Vance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the purpose for the alternative resolution is simply that council has had a bit of a discussion today around the plan, and it had some changes it wished to see in the plan before it went out for public comment. So the effect of the resolution just reflects that and endorses the strategy being distributed for community consultation, post those comments, moves to adopt the financial assistance policy and seeks that the other two policies for borrowing and for investment come back to the next meeting for approval, Mr Mayor. Nothing more complex than that.
So, council, we have a new resolution there. All those in favour? Thank you. Anyone like to speak on those? Thank you. 13.2.3, proposed budget. Ms Brennan?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report presents to Council the proposed budget for the financial year 2021 and 22 and the following 3 financial years. It's recommended that Council, in accordance with its community engagement policy, advertise the proposed budget for public comment, invite public submissions and provide for those who wish to speak to their submission. Council is required to consider all submissions prior to adopting the proposed budget in June 2021. Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020 requires that Council prepares a budget for the upcoming financial year and 3 subsequent financial years. And the local government regulations specify the information that's required to be included in the budget with a little bit more detail provided in the content of the report. A great deal of work was undertaken this year to try and find cost savings, and that is reflected in the budget. Rate increases were capped to 1.5% in line with the Victorian Government's rate system. And despite the financial challenge this poses, Council is determined to maintain current services while working within that cap. Council is also currently working towards developing a new vision and council plan, and extensive community consultation is being carried out to inform these documents. Until the new council plan is in place, Council continues to work towards the achievement of the 5 strategic objectives in the current council plan 2017-2021. The draft budget includes capital works of quite considerable sum, 9.14 million, and there's a list of some of the key projects in the report for information there. Council's waste management service is fully funded in the budget by waste service charges, and the charge for the next financial year includes additional costs related to curbside collection and disposal of glass, an extension of curbside collection services within the Shire, and an increase to the EPA levy, which is a mandatory charge. Property revaluations are now done annually, and although Council's rate increase is 1.5%, actual rate increases of individual properties are impacted by changes in valuations, with individual rate increases depending on the relativity to average valuations. Which means, of course, that if a property valuation is higher than the average property value increase for the Shire, the rates may increase by more than 1.5%, or if the property value is valued less than the average value for the Shire, the rates may increase by less than 1.5%. So, in conclusion, the report presents the proposed budget for 2021-22 that has been based on the ongoing delivery of current services and service levels. And the budget as tabled provides guidance on how Council intends to deliver its strategic objectives over the next 12 months. And it's the Officer's recommendation that Council endorses the proposed budget 2021-22, incorporating the proposed schedule of fees and charges prepared by Council for the purposes of sections 94 and 96(1) of the Local Government Act 2020. That Council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to give notice of the preparation of the proposed budget and inviting submissions and feedback in accordance with Council's community engagement policy, which will be open until 5 p.m. on Friday the 28th of May. Make available for public inspection the proposed budget, customer service centres and reception in the Council offices, and provide an electronic copy on the Council's website. And the Council considers any submission made by the public on a proposal or proposals contained within the proposed budget. Here's any submissions, if required, on the budget to Council briefing to be held on Tuesday the 8th of June. And considers a motion to adopt the proposed budget to the council meeting to be held on Tuesday the 15th of June 2021, having regard to all submissions received. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. Councillor's recommendation there. Councillor Easton, seconded by Councillor Clark. Councillor Easton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This document for the coming year is the document that keeps us going. It's our budget, it's how we survive through the planning and the actual spending of your dollars. Please take a look at it if you feel interested, because without your interest, we go nowhere. You've got to become interested as a community in how we run the Shire. We can't do it on our own. We need your help as well. Please have a look at this and take an interest.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of comments, I think, quite specifically that are worth noting in terms of the budget is, although property prices haven't moved as much as they did 12 months ago, it's important to remember that council, when property prices go up, council doesn't get more rates. And because we are capped at 1.5% courtesy of the Minister with the Fair Go rates process, that does create a challenge for council. For example, our wages this year as council, our enterprise bargaining agreement is 2%. It's about a 0.5% uplift for people moving up with promotion and skilling. And of course a 0.5% increase in the superannuation guarantee. So effectively our wages are moving by about twice what our rate cap is. So that put pressure on other parts of our budget, and I'd commend the staff for managing that in this process, in that sense of things. It's really good to see we've got a significant increase in our FAGs, and it's probably only for 1 year, our financial assistance grants from the federal government, but that's a really welcome thing for council. And very good, as Ms Bramwell indicated, in terms of the capital expenditure, particularly the roads and bridges program, $1.8 million. The other thing I think about council to remember is that we are still debt free, and we're not just debt free. We don't actually have very much on lease. We've leased a few printers, and that's about it. But quite often councils lease cars. We own all the cars we have in the yard, and that's all good in that sense of things. But I suppose the other one that's a significant change for our community will be waste this year. Waste because we're extending our service to the whole of the municipality, and waste also because we're introducing a fourth bin. Mr Gowans, is there anything else in that waste context that is probably important that we let the community know in the context of what's in the budget, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Clark. The waste budget, the waste charge includes, as people would expect, the curbside collection, which will be expanded to all residences within the Shire. But it also includes the operation of transfer stations and also the processing of recycling. It includes landfill levies that are imposed by the state, because there is a cost to transport waste to landfill, and council has absolutely got a policy where it's trying to reduce how much we put to landfill. So one of the key elements of introducing a glass bin is providing a better quality recycled product that can be recycled, and also the glass product can be recycled without that commingled issue that can occur between the glass contaminating cardboard and paper products. There are some key rules on what can be included in and out of the waste charge, and so it really has to be waste-specific services. That includes street litter, our street bins. It can include some cleaning elements of streets, but primarily the waste charge is predominantly around the curbside pickup.
Thank you. Thank you.
Only to perhaps request that we might have a hard copy available at Landsborough Resource Centre for those people.
Thank you, Councillor Van. I'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
I'd just like to acknowledge in relation to the budget as a whole, the work that's being put in by the Manager of Finance behind the scenes. It's a substantial amount of work, and it is appreciated. I'm sure that's recognised by all the councillors. And just in relation to the waste, it really is an area that where the community can really assist the council by doing the right things and adhering to the guidelines and the council and helping the council out of how we dispose of and manage waste. So it is something that, you know, as a family, an individual, and as communities, we can really assist the council. And the more we work together, the better we're going to get it. So I really encourage people to please work with the council in that space. So, all those in favour? Thank you. 13.2.4, the Avoca pump track. Ms. Bramble, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to update Council in relation to a proposed pump track in Avoca. Council considered a petition from Avoca Primary School students at its council meeting on 16th of February 2021. In addition, Council also received a letter from an Avoca resident in support of the pump track. At that meeting, Council resolved to receive the petition and to request a report be presented at a future Council meeting for decision. Excuse me. Pyrenees Shire Council Recreation Strategy identifies the development of a pump park BMX area in Avoca as a high priority. In particular, it states that to develop a pump park BMX area and additional informal play opportunities, e.g. a flying fox and half-court basketball court for young people near the Avoca skate park. Given the level of interest in the establishment of such a park, it is recommended that initial scoping work should commence over the next few months. These works will include, but are not limited to, engagement with the primary school students and other community members, investigation of neighbouring park facilities, facility location options, risk assessment costings, and an initial discussion with Sport and Recreation of Victoria. In summary, it's the officer's recommendation that Council request officers to commence initial scoping works for the Avoca pump park. Thank you.
Councillor recommendation. Councillor Easton, second. Councillor Vance. Councillor Easton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We received the petition from the children basically at the Avoca school. It's lovely to hear that they want to get out in the fresh air and enjoy riding their bikes, playing in the open air instead of being stuck at home on telephones, TVs and whatever. I hope we can come up with a plan as envisaged by this report, because it is only for the betterment of our youth. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly more than happy to support Councillor Easton in his comments, and providing it's feasible and achievable, I'm quite happy to support it also.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question to Ms Bramwell in the sense of things. I think very appropriate for us to go and do this. I understand there's quite a good one, Hepburn Shire has quite a good one at Creswick, and I assume there's probably one in Ballarat. Have you got any advice for us as councillors if we're travelling around maybe where we should be just going for a little look to inform ourselves, please?
I'm a bicycle.
Thank you,
I've got a bike if you want to take it.
I'll take that question on notice and I'll get back to you with some information of where locations of
Thank you.
appropriate facilities are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Brownell. I agree with Councillor Easton's comments, and I think any way we can encourage that outdoor physical activity is a good thing, and I'm sure it will be welcomed by the Avoca community and probably wider than the Avoca community. So, all those in favour? Thank you. 13.2.5, Service Review Plan 2021 to 2025. Ms Brandon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is to seek council endorsement of the plan for conducting service reviews for the next 4 years. Council has a strong commitment to continuously plan, review and improve its services, and in line with service planning principles included within the new Local Government Act, Council wants to ensure that community expectations and standards are met in a cost-effective manner, and that service outcomes are aligned to Council's long-term strategic objectives and plans. There is information within the council report regarding the delivery of council services and to ensure that they're appropriate, effective and efficient, and that service reviews will also strive to address increasing financial pressures and the widening gap between revenue and expenditure, whilst ensuring that council continues to meet community expectations to be environmentally and socially responsible and continue to provide a wide range of quality services. So service reviews are an ongoing process to ensure that we deliver what the council needs in the best possible way, especially with changing community needs and emerging external factors such as the need to respond to climate change. And although service reviews have been an ongoing part of council focus in the past, the disruptive nature of 2021 with the COVID-19 pandemic meant that such reviews were interrupted for that calendar year. Re-establishing the process will build the capacity of staff and the community to think critically and systematically about current and future service needs and lead to innovation in service provision and build a culture of continuous improvement within council. A programme has been developed for 2021-24 using the criteria where we identify existing service issues or record of ongoing complaints, whether the service is a mandatory or non-mandatory service, with the non-mandatory service a review of those services taking priority, the cost or value of the service to the organisation, the importance of the service to the community, and topical issues or potential for change in legislation or council direction. It's planned to undertake 2 full service reviews per year, plus any minor reviews of specific functions as needs arise. However, in 2021, it's acknowledged that as no reviews were undertaken in 2020, an additional review will be undertaken. And the proposed service review plan for 2021 is detailed in the report, but in summary, we're looking at planning and development, economic development and business support and tourism, and information management in the first year, asset management and community safety and public health in the second year, corporate services including governance, risk and compliance and finance in the third year, operations and works in the third year, waste management and community development and wellbeing in the fourth year. In addition to scoping will be finalised as these reviews are developed. In addition to the above major service reviews, in 2021 it's planned to conduct an additional review of a specific functional area, which is the Avoca community car, with a focus on mitigating exposures existing within a high-risk activity and to determine what lower-risk alternatives are available. A revisit of the 2019 review of the provision of aged care in the home laws that we undertaken as part of a joint OPAN project with Ararat and Northern Pyrenees Shire to examine the outcomes of the Royal Commission into Aged Care, the report which was published earlier this year. Council's endorsement of the programme is now requested, and it's the Officer's recommendation that Council notes the information regarding service planning and reviews and endorses the proposed service review programme for 2021-24 as listed in the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Councillors, we've got a recommendation before us. Councillor Clark, and Councillor Vance. Councillor Clark, speak on.
Well, just simply to say, Mr Mayor, it's very good practice to have a nice forward plan to work to in terms of the planning for the organisation, and the internal reports, particularly for us as a council, are a really important opportunity to have someone external look at what council does through our audit committee and then come back to council in terms of improving services to our community. So, and again, it's a plan, it's not locked in stone, we can always move and change things as we need to.
Councillor Easter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The minor review proposed for the Avoca community car, I'm interested in the criteria being used, one of which is the importance of the service to the community. That particular service to the community has been functioning for many years and is used extensively because it is important. I would like to make sure that the community is fully involved in any of the discussions and review, because I'm sure they will have a lot of input. Thank you.
Ms Bramble.
Thank you, Councillor East. And yes, the community will be involved, in particular the regular clients and the volunteers involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramble. I think it's really important that we do continue, as Councillor Clark alluded to, continually review our plans and services to gauge their effectiveness and, of course, make any necessary adjustments as we go along, because things change all the time. So, all those in favour? 13.2.6, proposed rating agreement for Stockyard Hill Wind Farm. Ms Bramble.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Goldwind have requested Council to determine the payment required under Section 94(5) of the Electricity Industry Act for the Stockyard Hill Wind Farm, and a draft proposal has been drawn up by Maddox lawyers, and consultation with Stockyard Hill Wind Farm Pty Limited has occurred prior to this draft rating agreement being put to Council. There were some adjustments to the initial draft agreement requested by Goldwind, which are detailed in the body of the report, and other changes within the document are considered uncontroversial, and Maddox has supported them, that's the legal firm, including the option to terminate upon decommissioning of the wind farm the dispute resolution process. Previously, in line with the order gazetted, Pyrenees Shire Council did enter into a rating agreement with Pyrenees Wind Energy Developments in Warburg, and figures were adjusted in 2019 following the gazettal of the revised order on the 11th of October 2018. And a reduced rating agreement was entered into with the Future Energy Pty Limited, which is at Chepstow. It's the officer's recommendation that Council authorises the Chief Executive to sign the agreement with Stockyard Hill Wind Farm Pty Limited with or without amendment.
Thank you, Ms Bramble. Recommendation there. Councillor Easton, second. Councillor Clark. Councillor Easton, would you like to speak? Councillor Clark. All those in favour? 13.3, Chief Executive Office, appointment of Council's representative on MAV. Mr Nolan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to determine a representative for the Municipal Association of Victoria. Councillor Clark earlier this year was elected as President of the MAV Board for a 2-year term, and under the MAV Act it is not possible for Councillor Clark to both act as the President and also to be the representative for Pyrenees Council. So it's necessary for Council to appoint another representative, and as such, Mr Mayor, I recommend that Council appoints 2 councillors, one as the primary representative and one as the secondary representative for the MAV for the remainder of the 2021 period.
Thank you, Mr Nolan. Councillor Clark.
I'm happy to move, Mr Mayor, that we appoint you as the primary representative and Councillor Vance as the secondary, if that's what meets Councillor Easton's approval.
Yep. Thank you. Yep.
Just while I'm up, so yeah, I think it is, now that I am the chair, I don't get the chance to exercise a vote on behalf of council. I only get to exercise a casting vote, and hope like hell I never have to use that you guys get it right on the floor, but we do need someone to vote for Pyrenees interests.
Thank you. So a recommendation there, all those in favour? Thank you. Item 14 brings us to our council reports, general business. So, council reports, you might go as per the list, and Councillor Clark with Ursula Ward, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So it's been a busy month between council meetings. Obviously, our council meetings, I didn't get the chance to go to Glen Patrick, unfortunately, but I do know Glen Patrick well in that sense of things. Just in terms of locally, we had the Westfield Transmission Project meeting in community information session in Warburton. There's some angst around that project at the moment because I think the state has released a strategy suggesting that the original 220 kV line, which goes from Marlborough up to Stawell, may intentionally be upgraded to a 500 kV line. And I understand that the transmission people are probably coming to talk to us next month at council, which is really good in the context of us getting up to speed with what might be proposed in that sense of things. Also had a meeting at the Marlborough Hub, which the CEO and a couple of the council staff attended, which was terrific. The annual meeting for the Evansville Community Centre, and really great to see 5 new people on that committee who've all moved to the district in about the last 3 years, come in, a whole lot of fresh ideas, a few of the oldies hanging around to help them out, but they're going to absolutely kick goals down there, which is really, really nice. And I got the chance to have a quick look at the rec reserve at the development of the Lexington Hub. Unfortunately, we got washed out and we didn't get there as councillors to have a look, but at that stage it was nearly up to roof stage, all the framing was up, so it's going really well as a project. In terms of my new role, MAV, I've been quite busy. I've already had 4 of my regional meetings. The western region of Melbourne, the southeast region of Melbourne. I was in Gippsland on Friday, and also the rural southwest meeting this morning, so the kind of councils from Colac Otway right through to Glenelg. The MAB has got a strategic plan out for consultation at the moment, so that's very important for us. We'll set our agenda for the next 4 years, and particularly set our agenda coming into a federal election towards the end of this year or early next year, and a state election at the end of next year. I also went and visited Central Goldfields Shire last week. Of course, Central Goldfields is one of our neighbours, has come out of administration and back to elected councillors, and things are going really well there. So they've got 2 returned councillors from the previous council. They've got a councillor from who was formerly a councillor at Maroondah, who's moved back to her hometown, and she's terrific value, and then 4 new councillors as well. So yeah, a really good group of councillors, very positive about their future and really keen to do great things in there. And just as my final comment, yesterday I went to Gippsland again, very unfortunately to the funeral of Councillor Malcolm Hole from the Wellington Shire. Councillor Hole and I served on the MAV board together for 4 years in that sense, but Councillor Hole is particularly known to this council, and unfortunately not to this community, but our community has a great debt to Councillor Hole. He has probably been the key mover and shaker in timber towns, both in Victoria and also nationally over many years. And of course we've got significant timber assets in our community. I know we've worked very closely with him as a councillor in his roles, and he's been an absolute champion for the timber industry right across the state and the nation, so he'll be greatly missed across the whole sector. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Vance, to Cameron Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Locally, I attended AGMs for the Redbank Rec Reserve and also the Amphitheatre Rec Reserve in the last week. I went along to the Glen Patrick gathering along with 2 other councillors and 2 staff members, and unfortunately nobody turned up. On coming out of Glen Patrick, I just ventured up the road a little bit to run into one of the locals that knew it was on but forgot all about it. I guess the same went for the secretary of the Rec Reserve, but anyway, I had a short discussion with him and left him understanding that we're well and truly in there to support them if they have any requests. I've had 2 Zoom meetings in the last week, the Rural Councils Victoria. We had a fair amount of discussion about the upcoming summit, which is due in May. I can announce that Jerry Ryan is going to be the keynote speaker at the dinner on Wednesday night, so I guess he'll have some interesting things to tell us. Out of our further discussion around the meeting, it's quite obvious that with the onset of COVID and the outcome of COVID, people are looking to move out of metropolitan Melbourne. They've realised that a lot of them anyway can do their job from home and maybe have to turn up at the office once a week or whatever, but it has created an issue for rural Victoria in the housing issue. We now find that in rural Victoria, I know in our neighbouring council at Arrett, they've advertised they've got jobs and more jobs, but no housing. It's a problem, and it's something that's going to be an issue. And hopefully that we get a good representation at our summit. I know that there have been over 100 registrations already, so we're going to have a good wide coverage of the state, hopefully, and further discussions in the breakout sessions on the Friday. I guess I floated the idea, I don't know whether our CEO has had any contact from the RCB Secretariat yet, but about the success of Correa Park and how we've gone about developing that area and creating opportunities for builders or people to build homes, and we've had an absolute amazing response to that, I believe, to the credit of this council. We also had an address from Liz Ritchie, who is the CEO of Regional Australia Institute, and it's become fairly obvious from her discussions that she's keen to gather information from rural councils in Victoria and spread the word about the good work that we're doing. Quite pleased that we're getting recognition for the good work we're doing. The other Zoom meeting I had was a Timber Towns meeting, and as Councillor Clark has already registered, the late Malcolm Hull was a highly esteemed member of the Timber Towns Victoria. He was the driving force behind the National Timber Towns Council also being formed, so he will be a great loss to not only the timber industry, but his own township in Hayfield and the Wellington Shire. He's been a great person and became a personal friend of mine. I will miss the old boy. We had two speakers at our Zoom meeting, and one was from the Institute of Foresters in Australia. They are a group of scientists that have learnt the shortcomings of the forest industry probably through the education system, but I gather they have some practical experience also. The message that come home to me is that since the demise of the Forest Commission in years gone by, and the closure of our parks for national parks has brought about a demise in the management of our forest reserves, and in the way of unnecessary pest control and weed control are the major worries. And I guess locally we see that in the introduction of wild pigs coming into the area and the deer, and somebody told me the other day they saw a wombat up on the mountain on the road, so even we're getting visitors from wombats now. I think that's all I need to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did attend a meeting at Joel with regards to the new power line. I perhaps got to that meeting a little bit early. They registered, they said to turn up any time between 1 and 7 o'clock, and I got there at about 1:30 and nobody else had been there. But it has become very obvious to me that to get the power from Balgannon to Melbourne is only one way, and that's above the ground, not below the ground. There's a great push for putting power lines under the ground, but if they do that, there'll be no farming on top of those power lines because it creates radiation, and people just don't understand that the sensible way is above the ground, unfortunately, for those that object to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vance. Councillor Reason, Oakwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to reiterate Councillor Vance's comments about no housing. Anything that comes on the market in Avoca is gone in a very, very short period of time. It's not only in our neighbouring areas, it's also within Pyrenees Shire. We had an Activate Avoca meeting during the month, and it's very pleasing to see the children's play space almost completed in Avoca. I'd imagine it will be finished in the not too distant future. The railway station is becoming a focal point for many various things within the town. It's got a wonderful little coffee shop there, and the office complex at the old town hall is starting to take shape and come together. Next week, on Monday the 26th, Central Highlands Water is going to have a drop-in session from mid-afternoon till about 6 for anybody that wants to talk about the water supply within Avoca. They're very interested to have people call in and tell them what they think of Avoca's water supply, so take an opportunity to talk to the experts and let them know your thoughts. And on Sunday I attended the Avoca Arts and Gardens AGM at the railway station. I'd like to congratulate all the new committee that were elected on the day and wish them the best for the ensuing 12 months.
Thank you, Councillor Nance. Had my fair share of us, Councillor Easton, sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah, clean my glasses. Yeah, I've had a fairly busy month with meetings, and some of those virtual and some of those in person. Like others, who attended the Glenpatrick Reserve for the cuppa and chat, and we thought that we were having people, well, that popular people going to camp there to come and speak to us, but it was just a couple of caravans there that were enjoying the view. So, but anyway, it's a lovely little spot out there, and we enjoyed a cup of tea, and of course we get the time to have a chat between ourselves, which is always good. I had a meeting with the Beaufort Agricultural Society, and they're planning towards the next agricultural show, which is later on in the year. Of course, there's so much planning that goes into that, and it was pleasing to go and sit at that meeting, which I haven't been to one before, and that they do so much work throughout the year in the lead up to that day. There's a great deal of organisation, and I think any way that we can help them do some of that planning would be appreciated by them. And of course that's all volunteer work as well, so I mean that makes it even more special. Had a meeting with the Beaufort Football Club. The season has commenced, and it was really pleasing last Thursday at training to see so many people out and about in the oval, including the netballers. And you know, like every other football club locally, they've had a year off for COVID, and it's difficult to sustain those clubs, a lot of those clubs. So the committee have worked very hard behind the scenes to make sure that we've got not only got some sides this year, but we're going to be fairly competitive as well, just through netball and football, and there's a lot of young blood up there, young players, and again it's good to see them running around the football oval and participating in those sports on a weekend rather than sitting home watching telly, so that's really pleasing. Had some meeting with some constituents, and also been a party to a couple of AGMs. So I think that's about it for me. Thank you. General business, no general business. So that brings us to the close of the meeting at 6:57 p.m. Thank you all for taking the time to submit questions and to watch the live stream if you've chosen.